A magical world that exists right in front of us and yet just out of sight. If only we knew the right wall to run through or the right order in which to tap the bricks, we could enter this mysterious and mystical world. Here we have the compelling concept at the foundation of Harry Potter, which has gripped the imagination of the collective for the last 26 years, including my younger and present self. A fascinating character stands atop his tower, overseeing the events of this magical tale. In this video, I'm going to psychologically unpack why Harry Potter is so enchanting to so many, and what the character of Dumbledore indicates about the collective psyche. Before we get started, just a quick reminder to like and subscribe, as it helps the channel greatly. So let's start with the concept of the Muggle world and the magical world. Why is this idea in and of itself so enticing? Well, we can think of this as symbolic of the conscious and unconscious aspects of the mind. The Muggle realm, which is the non-magical realm, is symbolic of that which is conscious. It is that of the everyday. It's what we know of ourselves and our environment. This is the domain of the ego, the conscious personality. However, living just beyond the conscious Muggle world, there exists the magical realm. This can be understood symbolically as that which is unconscious. So what is the unconscious? Well, it's all the parts of the psyche that have not yet been integrated into the ego's personality and therefore have not yet been made conscious. Carl Jung often talked about the process of individuation and described it as someone reaching their full psychological potential over a lifetime. Individuation, in essence, is the process of making the unconscious conscious, which leads to a fuller, more authentic and nuanced individual. He believed that we were naturally inclined to go on this journey, that we were called upon by the unconscious to face it. So it makes sense why the setting of a hidden magical world just beyond that of the Muggles is so inherently compelling. The concept of the Muggle world and the magical world living side by side symbolically depicts the conscious and unconscious aspects of the psyche perfectly. It demonstrates our intuitive feeling of the presence of the unconscious and the importance of integrating it. So we can think of Harry as symbolic of the conscious ego entering the magical unknown realm of the unconscious. Now naturally, over the course of the story, he comes across many different and interesting characters, but the one I want to focus on today is the enigmatic Albus Percival Wulfric Brian Dumbledore. As the ever-present guiding force in the story, Dumbledore very much represents the archetype of the wise old man. Now, archetypes are essentially universal symbols of shared human experience. Each archetype has a collection of traits unique to it. In order to explain the relevance of the wise old man archetype, we need to recap on how Jung even discovered archetypes in the first place. He identified the presence of archetypes during his research of world mythology. He noticed the same characters and motifs would emerge in tales despite the stories coming from different times and places with no contact with one another. He theorized that there must be a level of the unconscious shared amongst all humans, which he coined the collective unconscious. He posited that all of these repetitive characters and motifs were universal human experiences, which he called archetypes. He believed the archetypes themselves spontaneously emerged from the collective unconscious. Now, Dumbledore stands as the headmaster of Hogwarts, the magical school Harry attends of witchcraft and wizardry. So looking at this symbolically, the conscious ego, Harry, has ventured into the mysterious and magical unconscious and is attending a school. In other words, the conscious ego has journeyed into the unconscious to learn and develop. At the helm of this learning process, Hogwarts, is Dumbledore. This is one of the essential traits of the wise old man archetype. He represents the wisdom of the collective unconscious, and the function of this archetype is to share this unconscious wisdom with the ego in order that it may be understood and integrated. In essence, this archetype is an essential part of the individuation process, which, as stated earlier, is the process of making the unconscious conscious. Dumbledore acts out this function of aiding Harry's process of individuation throughout the story. He reveals to Harry what desires lay in the depth of his heart in the mirror of Erised. He warns him against losing himself to dreams and fantasies and enlightens him on the value and importance of conscious choices. He pushes him towards taking responsibility for his life. So psychologically, we can understand this as Dumbledore imploring Harry of the necessity of staying as conscious as possible while taking on the daunting task of facing the unconscious. This is essential as the ego needs to be as alert as possible in order to process and integrate the unconscious. It needs to stay grounded as it develops, otherwise it can become completely untethered and lost in the process. In essence, one can lose their mind, which is echoed clearly in Dumbledore's wisdom about the Mirror of Erised. Men have wasted away in front of it, even gone mad. Dumbledore helps Harry to understand the meaning of the prophecy and his inevitable conflict with Voldemort. Psychologically, we can understand Voldemort as the shadow, which is all of the repressed and feared parts of the unconscious. Dumbledore encourages Harry to face this courageously. So in essence, he educates him on the shadow and the need to face it in order that it may be integrated and made conscious. In fact, one of the most impactful lessons Dumbledore imparts onto Harry is facing death with the Resurrection Stone. You see, the process of the ego growing and integrating more of the unconscious in many ways is a death and rebirth process. This is because the ego, upon being confronted with the unconscious, is changed forever. It has come face to face with a piece of itself that it didn't know existed. Therefore, the personality structure as it understands itself is no more and goes through a death of sorts. The development and evolving of the ego with the newly integrated parts of the psyche can be thought of as a rebirth. So symbolically speaking, Dumbledore helps Harry to face this process. Dumbledore is a consistent and prevailing presence in the story. He always has just the right thing to say at just the right time with a twinkle in his eye. It seems to me, given that Dumbledore is a beloved character, the wise old man archetype is present in the collective psyche. It appears that we crave this wisdom from deep within. It bubbles up from the unconscious at just the right moment. However, it's up to us whether we choose to listen and integrate this wisdom or not. I believe this is one of the reasons Harry Potter is such a compelling story, because it outlines a successful journey of individuation. One of my favorite lines from Dumbledore is, "Soon we must all face the choice between what is right and what is easy." To me, this encapsulates the difficulty of the journey of individuation, but the necessity of it. It's the process that empowers the individual to make conscious choices in their life as opposed to sleepwalking through it. Harry heeds Dumbledore's words and faces his destiny with courage, an example which we can all take great inspiration from on our own journeys of individuation. You've been watching Archetypal Wisdom. Remember to like and subscribe. Stay wise.